I am live. So, that sunshades, if you know, you know. If you don't, you don't. I don't want you looking into my eyes. Look into my eyes and tell me what it is you see. You hear me? So, look. It's a series of situations that have transpired that just today alone that made me hit this live button. The shades, because I still don't want to reveal myself. And I don't mean that you can see my face, you can see my screen name, you know who I am in the city. But I don't want to reveal my eyes. That's why we wear these shades. So anyway, I'ma just talk. Just expressing what's on my mind. So a couple of days ago, as I was going to sleep, I clicked on some video. I don't know why this video came up. I clicked on some video. It's with one of these spiritual conspiracy theorists. Now, a conspiracy theorist and a spiritual conspiracy theorist is two different things. You know what I'm saying? Because usually when what they call us conspiracy theorists, the things that we say end up being true. You know what I'm saying? The things that people be like, oh, you just exaggerating and stuff like that. It end up being true. You know what I'm saying? But a spiritual conspiracy theorist is something on a whole nother level. You heard me? A spiritual conspiracy theorist is someone who is presenting the truth or presenting a situation from the side of a spiritual perspective, as though it's spiritual mumbo jumbo. And that's the reason why I call it conspiracy theorist, because when they call it conspiracy theorist, a conspiracy theorist is like a little slight where they're trying to like low-key trying to say that what you're saying is bullshit. So that's why I say it's a spiritual conspiracy theorist. So I don't really play on the internet and stuff like that, but I spend a lot of time paying attention to the stuff that people posting, especially when it comes to spiritual affairs. And when it comes to spiritual affairs, it's easy to fool people because the blueprint has already laid down. Somebody has already laid the blueprint and has already started playing in your mind when it comes to spiritual affairs. Let's call it spiritual affairs. I said this back in 2020. I asked a question, I posed in the form of a question. Now think about a 5-year-old girl. It's 16, 20, 17, 20, maybe even 18, 20. A grown-ass man. Let's not even say a girl or a boy. A 5-year-old girl or boy. Sleeping in the middle of the night in what's called the slave quarters. And for those who this doesn't resonate with, my family still live on the land. And I'm talking about in Poinco Peak. My family still live on the land and toil on the land that's owned by the people who owned our people during physical incarceration called slavery, aka bondage. So This is from my perspective, not from somebody's perspective who's been far removed from such a situation where it doesn't seem real to them. This is my reality, which it is reality. It's not just my reality. This is what it is. So just imagine a 5-year-old girl, a 5-year-old boy.
Bluetooth disconnected.
A 10-year-old girl, a 10-year-old boy, a 12-year-old girl, a 12-year-old boy, a 15-year-old young lady, a 15-year-old young man, which are still girls and boys, sleeping at night. Maybe in the front room, more than likely in the front room where they're occupying the front room with several other people. And a grown-ass man, more than likely an overseer from the dominant society, doesn't creep in the house, doesn't creep in the room, but boldly bust in because they can. And while the grandparents, the parents, and the siblings are sleeping or asleep, they come in and pull said child or young adult or young person to a part of the room that's isolated. And they proceed to pull up the dress of the girl or the young lady, or pull down the pants of the boy or the young man. And they proceed to vaginally penetrate the girl or the young lady, or anally penetrate the boy or the young man. And I used initially a 5-year-old to drive home my point. A 5-year-old trying to rationalize what happened to them. And everyone in the house, in the community, which would be a physical plantation, a place of bondage, they all hush, don't speak upon it. And a 5-year-old, in said example, attempting to rationalize and process what happened to them. They say a ghost, a spirit, a succubus, vaginally and or anally penetrated them the night before in their sleep. Here we are, 600 years later, 400 years later, 200 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 years later, with the same psyche of that child or that young girl or that young boy. And we process things that we can't speak upon truthfully as a matter of it's some supernatural being, some unseen force, something that's outside of the realm of reality. Let me tell you what an incubus, well, rather, let's do it in order, a succubus and an incubus spirit is. A succubus and an incubus spirit is. Spirit, psyche, is of the mind. Succubus is a spirit that rests or lies or is penetrated the mind from the inside. An incubus is a spirit of the mind or the psyche that rests upon the outside of the physical self. And it wasn't until I heard Dr. Amos break this down that all of it made sense to me, because nothing made sense to me in the conscious community and all the stuff people were saying. Nothing made sense to me until he broke this down. Because now you're talking my language. I'm talking about Dr. Amos Wilson. Talking my language now. Because all that crazy shit and all that weirdo ass shit that most, I don't give a fuck who get mad, most conscious people talk, that shit don't resonate with me because I know it's weirdo ass shit. There's a reason why so many weirdos in a conscious community. I mean weirdos. A lot of people with unresolved psychological issues. There's a reason why it's so easy to prey upon the so-called conscious community. A lot of unresolved psychological issues, and they hide behind, and they try to intellectualize consciousness. There is no consciousness without spiritual consciousness. You can sit up there and intellectualize and history and come pull up histograms and document historically your physical ancestry. It's much deeper than that. That's really insignificant in the whole scheme of reality. What a succubus is, it's not a female sex demon. That just shows you how spiritually illiterate these individuals who have colonized us are. And have stolen and raped our minds. Until now, we are regurgitating this nonsense. A succubus is something that has spiritually, mentally, and psychologically penetrated the mind. It's not no spiritual mumbo jumbo. The reason why I keep banging the drum, it's not spiritual mumbo jumbo. It's not this made up stuff that people are saying. But that's what gets all the attention. Because as long as it's mumbo jumbo, as long as it's something that you don't have to really realistically and physically articulate and deal with, then it gets attention. As long as it's of some fabrication, a succubus means something has penetrated your psyche, your spirit from the inside. An incubus is something that rests upon the outside. And usually and typically, we allow the incubus to incubate upon us from the outside, physically. Because we're human. And the incubus appeases the physical senses: sight, hearing, touch, speaking, touch, taste. So it's human to allow incubus spirits to incubate on the outside of us. But to be spiritually illiterate and not to understand the difference of when something's incubating on the outside of you and incubating on the inside of you. When it's incubating on the inside of you, it's Geppetto, and you're Pinocchio. You're a puppet to said spirit. So a couple of days ago, right before I went to sleep, and I asked myself, like, why are you watching this right before you go to sleep? And my response was, because I know it's BS, bull crap. And it's one of the most known YouTubers who talk about this spiritual stuff. And they break down and they talk about artists and celebrities and these spiritual, whatever they talk about, where they make it like it's some demonic type stuff and whatever. I don't really watch this stuff, but the other people who I've watched this stuff, this is pretty much one of the secondhand people that they get this stuff from, which that person is getting it from a whole another entity that's coming from the dominant society. But I don't want to make the conversation about that. This person in this video I watched was on Michael Jackson. Now, I say Jackson 5 over Michael Jackson all day, every day. There would be no Michael Jackson without Jackson 5. And if you ask me any time of the day, which I rather listen to and which I do listen to, I listen to the Jackson 5. And I don't really pull up Michael Jackson music. That's just because I like live instrumentation. But I would never take away from what Michael Jackson did and became as an artist. It's really hard being an artist in this world, because when you haven't made that differentiation and you haven't separated yourself from the masses, it becomes difficult to exist in the world or coexist in the world as an artist. Because most people, the layman, the everyday person, are always trying to rationalize you as an artist. And they're always trying to normalize you as an artist. So anything you say or do, they're filtering it through they're filtering it through the lens of a normal or everyday person. And most people don't want to admit that a person, I'm talking about an artist, is a person who have went beyond the normal or typical layers of the psyche, have gone beyond the ordinary, and they have access to the higher faculties of the mind. And a lot of people don't want to just admit that. So when it comes to popular culture, the people who are popular culture artists are put up at the stake. They are scapegoated. They are used to elevate and to highlight. And as people are admiring them, at the same time they are hating them. So they always have to find something negative to say about them or believe something negative. And it's easy for people to come out and say something negative or something negative about these people, and people are going to run with it. But as for the artists have a responsibility themselves to stop and not try to seek acceptance from the layman or the everyday person. They're not going to understand you. And I'm not talking about the people who label themselves as artists and craftsmen who label themselves as artists. And I'm not taking away from or trying to define who is or isn't an artist, because artist isn't even a label. Artist is the manner of which something is done. The art of. So if you ask me, you can just take away the whole thing of artists. So I'm looking at this video, and I already knew that it was going to be some BS. Because its intent is to penetrate the dark crevices of your subconscious and to creep you out. So they say outlandish things to creep you out. And this individual said something about Michael Jackson, and when Michael Jackson did an interview, and he said something about going up some tree, and then the individual said, then he admitted to he got his song from this tree, and then the person went and broke down the lyrics of the song and said something about it, got it from the tree. And I said this, and I continue to say this. If you think Michael Jackson or any other artist got information, art, song, the ideas from a tree, you are mentally ill. You are mentally ill to think that a tree is giving information. That is insane. That is not realistic at all. And with anything when it comes to spiritual manners, it's never realistic. And by not being realistic, that's how people continue to hide in the darknesses and the crevices of the subconscious. And that's how they're able to abuse. They're able to assault. They're able to commit crimes against God, against the spirit. because people have been led to believe that it's mumbo jumbo. It's not realistic. It's on the fringe of reality. Excuse me. Even that cough, some people are going to, they're going to dissect that cough, even though I was holding it in for minutes and I finally couldn't hold it in no more. They're going to dissect that I'm wearing these sunshades. And I'm going to tell at the end why I'm really wearing the sunshades. So, this spiritual mumbo jumbo, everything that I do is to show that the spirit, the psyche, and the mind is very tangible. It's very real. And it can be documented. It can be assessed. It can be seen. It can be analyzed in the real world. People commit all kind of spiritual violent acts against individuals because they know that most people don't understand it. But all this stuff with this artist said this and the artist said that, and on a certain level, I don't blame the artist for a person misconstruing their words. No, I don't. But I blame the artist for saying things and trying to be understood. And that's a level that we go through as artists, of trying to be understood. That's a phase we go through. We try to be understood. Artists have to mature and grow up. And some can't. And some get trapped in popular culture, such as Michael Jackson, who is the king of pop, the creator of pop. Well, pop was created through him. And they get caught and stuck there. They get stuck between worlds. And what should be an avant-garde artist becomes reduced and rendered and watered down and mixed down to popular culture. Read my thesis dissertation about the adversities of popular culture, or the adversities of pop culture, as I called it. And I break all that down. See, all that was 12, 13 years before its time. That was over a decade before its time. Now look at the art world. Look at the art world. Look at fine arts now. I was saying what was to come. So, I'm about to end this video because not much else I want to say. The spiritual world, spirituality, the spiritual warfare is very tangible. It's very real. And it's not spiritual mumbo jumbo. It's not something that's unseen. It's unseen by the physical eye, but it still manifests in reality. And people think that they have a free range of violating people spiritually, because they know most people don't understand. Most people can't see, let alone understand. A succubus isn't an invisible force. It isn't something made up. Just like the Amityville horror and the Amityville and all that. And even the story of the movie Sybil. See how popular culture has twisted reality? And people thinking that because it's inspired by a real story, it's real. It's all made up. It's all fake. When they're trying to show you a spirit or some entity or some demon or whatever, it's because they're trying to hide the hand of a human in a situation. A demon, a spirit, or whatever. That's all physical. Those things interact. Either a good spirit or a positive spirit, a negative spirit. Spirit is something of human action. The way humans behave. The way humans act. There's always connected to hands, a person, always. So why am I really wearing these shades? Because I haven't done my eyebrows for this week, but have at it, because I already know there's a whole bunch of weirdo stories that's gonna come out about me.